Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here and welcome to my guide to Pandæmonium Asphodelos second circle on the normal difficulty. If you'd like to skip to a specific mechanic, please use the timestamps in the description of the video. The boss you'll contend with here is the Hippocampus. This boss is omnidirectional, so don't worry about positionals here. Take note of the raised platforms and grates around the room as you will need those shortly. Finally, don't touch the wall. Wall bad. As the encounter begins, you'll need to know some basics. Murky Depths is a room-wide AoE, and Doubled Impact is a shared tank buster. Both tanks should pop a cooldown and share the damage here, though big cooldowns on a single tank is enough to survive. The next mechanic is an important one, Spoken Cataract. The Hippocampus has the ability to separate its head from its body, and it uses that to its advantage both here and in future mechanics. When this starts casting, the head and body will both display independent hitboxes with an arrow indicating the direction they are aiming. At the end of the cast bar, both parts will do their own AoE. The head will do a half-room AoE, eliminating one entire side of the room. The body, on the other hand, will only hit about a third of the room through the center with a line AoE. Just process these one at a time. Get opposite of the direction the head is aiming, and then a few steps back from whichever direction the body is aiming. There's plenty of safe space once you recognize how they aim the AoEs. Two are going to happen back to back here, so get familiar with it here. Next is the Hippocampus's main mechanic, Sewage Deluge. This will do some room-wide damage and after a short delay, cover the majority of the room in water. The only safe locations here will be the raised platforms and the grates that connect them. Touching the water will just give you a dropsy dot. It does about 8k per tick, so it's survivable, but not ideal. For positioning here, I'd recommend letting the healers have the south center grate, with the DPS spread along the two southwest and southeast raised platforms. Tanks can use the north connecting grate and those raised platforms how they choose. It's not mandatory to set things up this way. In fact, there's definitely some better ways to set it up, but at the very minimum, this helps for healing and mechanics a lot, if not everyone is super spread out in random places. Realistically, clock spots that teams often use in Savage raids would be far better for this, and I'll keep that in mind when Savage releases, but for normal mode, I just can't expect that. During this phase are a number of mechanics that will test your use of the limited space. Tainted Flood is an AoE on 6 random players, so everyone just needs to spread. How you spread isn't so important, just don't stand a mile away from your healers. After this is Predatory Sight. This just gives every player a marker over their head, indicating they need to stack with at least one other person. It doesn't matter which teammate it is, just stand on top of any other teammate to avoid taking any damage from this. Finally, for the first Sewage Deluge is Shockwave. This has the boss jump on one of the raised platforms and knock all players away from that location. Line yourself up with this to ensure it doesn't send you into the water or worse the wall, or just use knockback mitigation like Surecast and Arm's Length. This ends Sewage Deluge number 1, but the Hippocampus is quick to introduce another new mechanic, Dissociation. This has the boss's current head separate and appear on the north side of the room. After a delay, it will do a half room size AoE, so everyone just needs to identify where the head is and get to the opposite side of the room during that mechanic. Next is Coherence. This places a proximity tank buster on one of the two tanks at random and a split damage AoE on one of the non-tank party members. The tank with the flare marker should just get away from the party closer to the wall and make sure they pop a cooldown for damage. The party, on the other hand, just needs to stack up and split the other AoE. The fall-off damage on the proximity is very forgiving, so if the tank was at the very front of the hitbox and the rest of the party at the very back, then everyone can keep hitting the boss here. After another Murky Depths is Sewage Deluge number 2. This is different from the first one, but every deluge from this point on will be the same as this. After a Tainted Flood, the boss will begin using Spoken Cataract during the deluge. It works exactly the same, you just need to stay on the grates and raised platforms while getting to the safe spots. Bear in mind that the body's AoE actually covers about a third of each raised platform as well. Next is Sewage Eruption. This places 3 back-to-back AoEs under most of your party members' locations. While it's definitely easiest to just stack everyone up and then dodge along the grates and raised platforms, I accept the reality that in the Duty Finder, this will be a bit of a madhouse. Just try and stick to the very edges of the arena, the safe spaces on the arena, as you dodge and do your best not to wall people off as you drop these. There will be another Spoken Cataract right after this as well, so be mindful of that. After a bunch of flood sites and a room-wide AoE, the Hippocampus will use Dissociation to do a half-room AoE. It will also jump to a raised platform and use Shockwave. Either make sure the Shockwave knockback sends you to a side of the room that's safe from the Dissociation AoE, or just use knockback resist and stand in the safe spot to begin with. It should be up for every single Shockwave. With that, we're close to done with every mechanic. The waters will recede and the hippocampus will use Dissociation again. Once the head picks a half of the room, the boss will use Sewage Eruption. Place and dodge these on the half side of the room that is safe from the Dissociation. Right after these is Coherence again, and it works the same as before. Tank runaway and mitt, party stack for damage. After a couple more murky deaths and a double impact, the fight is just on repeat at this point. Just keep a cool head and you won't be washed away. That's going to be a wrap for my guide to the second circle in Asphodelos on the normal difficulty. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for more Endwalker, raid, guides, videos, all sorts of things. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, take care.